Hey Collective, Spirit wants to bring another message. It's February 18th, 12:43 on the clock, 143 from the Spirit Realm. We know what that is, right? We know that teaching by now. We should. One letter, four meanings. One letter, four letters, three letters. So, before I start reading back to whoever was listening to the last messages, it's walking us up through these times, but back in Jesus' days, because DELORIS canon, they walked with Jesus. As I read from the Bible at different times, that was written by King James, who was the dreaded sovereign lord of the people with the Mayflower Compact. So you got to be careful with that stuff. And as we know, Ishmael Perez, I shared him, he speaks of how and LT, with Ann We Know, if anybody watches some of these newer news stations, I've been watching these for years, and I already know, they got 650 plane loads of gold from the Vatican, and also many other books that were hidden from the world, I guess. There's like 64 more books, or something to that extent, besides just the Bible, because the Romans kind of kept different apostles from their word getting out, the testimonies for what Jesus had done. But DELORIS brings the truth with hypnotherapy, past life regression. So this is just fascinating to me, as is what Ishmael Perez speaks of, and what LT is a Marine that brings the truth. And we know, I've been watching him for, and there's a lot of things coming out. The truth is coming out, little at a time, but when God decides, that seventh trumpet blows and the world gets the full truth, and then that's the last manifestation of Antichrist, because if you can't love after getting the truth, then that's not of Christ, and that's not easy to do, because the truth is kind of tough. But let me read February 18th off the Daily Bread, because, it's February 18th, and it's no fake ratings. Put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we're all members of the one body. That's Ephesians 4:25. A ride-sharing customer shared that he had endured a driver eating the world's smelliest fruit, another driver who was bickering with a girlfriend, and one who tried to get him to invest money in a Ponzi scheme. In each case, instead of a poor rating, he gave the drivers 5 stars. He explained, "They all seemed like nice people. I didn't want them to be kicked off the app over my bad rating." He gave false reviews, keeping the truth from the drivers and others. For different reasons, we might withhold the truth from others, but the Apostle Paul encourages the Ephesian believers to lovingly speak the truth to one another as new creatures in Christ. This required the cultivating habits of righteousness and holiness, living lives that were set apart for Him and that reflect His ways. They were to replace lying with telling one another the truth, because lies divide and disrupt, while the truth unites us as believers. United we stand. He wrote, "Each of you must put off falsehoods and speak truthfully to your neighbors."
That's 60% of sales on it.
And to your neighbors, for we are all members of one body. Jesus empowers us with the courage to resist lying and giving one another fake ratings, things that can disrupt our unity with other believers. Living a life of love as He guides us will lead to our sharing kind and compassionate expressions of truth. When are you tempted to withhold the truth from other believers? Why is it vital to share what's honest and true? Those are questions that it asks. And then it says, "Dear God, please help me to be authentic in my relationships out of love for you and others." That's like that prayer of love that's it's over there, but I know it. Father, I love you for all your greatness and worthy. I love my neighbor as I love myself for my love of you. Please forgive me for all my sins as I forgive all those who I have, sinned against me, who've injured me. Please pardon me for all my sins, for I forgive all that has injured me. That's how it goes. But now I'm gonna read this. Hold on, put this music back on. Soothing. Oh wait, I gotta pray to the ancestors. Ancestors of the highest white light, please help guide me through this message and protect the collective, and let me speak clearly, concisely to the collective with Christ consciousness. All praises to our Most High, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Put this back on. I don't know. They screwed it up. But all right, I'm just going to jump in. I read this the other day, but this is DELORIS, and then she's got her client in deep trance, speaking through her subconscious of what she remembered in her past life. She was Jesus's niece. So does he tell, this is DELORIS, does he tell you what his plans are for you? I was told that I should stay at the village, and that if I have faith and true sensitivity, then it will become very clear where I am needed. DELORIS, then at this time, he doesn't want you to go with him? No, I feel very strong. I feel very good about my decision. I need his counsel, for I needed to gain clarity, and I needed to know what my visions and feelings were of love and light, and not of the darkness. He gave me that assurance that as long as I seek the truth and be honest, then the fear and the darkness will never gain control. This is DELORIS, these are very important emotions, very important feelings. I think it's good that you are coming to terms with all of these things, but this will also mean that you will continue to have contact with Abram. This is a man she's falling in love with, and she thought she was just going to stay walking the path with Jesus and never fall in love. She said she left her house because she didn't want to be arranged marriage. She didn't want that life. So this is her. Yes, but it will be much easier now, for I know my mission. I know that much of my purpose is continue to learn, to heal, and to ease the pain of the suffering. I will go again to the village of the lepers, of the diseased, and I will have strength, and I will be healthy. For I am meant to help ease the burden and the pain of the diseased and the distraught, and I must work with the orphans that desperately need my love. These are purposes of truth and love and light, and these are mine. DELORIS, can the followers of the Nazarene go on their own journeys? We usually go in groups. It would be rare for somebody to travel a distance on their own. DELORIS, then do you mean that you and some others will go back to the same village of the lepers without the Nazarene? They're calling Jesus the Nazarene. I feel there will be very few. Her voice broke and she began to cry. I believe there will be very few contacts I will have with the Nazarene in the physical presence, but he promised there will always be contact. She saw the vision of Jesus being taken into custody. He was already taken into custody a few times and tortured. They were trying to get him to stop preaching because I'll lead up to that. DELORIS, is that one of the things he wants you to do, to keep returning to these places even without him, and to carry on the work that he had started? He did not say this. This is something that I feel will be mine to do down the road. I feel that is one of the things that will become clear. And as he said, I will know my path and my purpose as it unfolds. I feel strongly that this will come about. Staying present. DELORIS, do you have any fear of contracting these diseases from these people? No, I have been there before. I feel that if you do not live in fear, then you shall keep yourself healthy in mind, body, and soul. Fear creates all diseases and ailments, whether one is aware of this or not. DELORIS, that's an interesting idea. Is this what he taught you, that fear creates diseases? Yes. There were many times in my younger years in my father's village when I would sneak out to attend the closed meetings, and I gained this knowledge. This is of his teachings. DELORIS, of course, we always think that some diseases can't be avoided. He doesn't believe this way. No, I say, though, that one must be a believer in the source within one's being. The source in one's being. That is one's God center. That is one's heart center. If one lives without fear, one has placed a great healing protection throughout one's physical being and other layers of protection around the human person. The auras, the chakras. If you let fear or darkness enter your being, you open up a space that will allow ailments to grow. One can control any disease of the mind or body. One can control any disease of the mind of the body. Well, who's the one? The one. Do you think this is one of the ways he is able to heal people? Yes, for those people who have come to him and asked to be healed, have created a healing path in their own hearts and minds. It is just connecting with his energy because they have already set up their belief of trust. Then they have eliminated the fear and the darkness, which enables them to accept the healing. So even though the Nazarene has the power to heal, the person who is ailing has to have within himself his own power to release his fears and the disease of his flesh. Or if they are not meant to be healed or continued on with this life, they will find it in a very easy transition to ascend into true peace and love, and they will go on to the next existence. Dolores, can he heal someone that doesn't want to be healed, or if they don't know about it? I search my past and I see that he will heal the ailing bird, the ailing animal. He is very much aware of those people who are not of truth and of testing him, for he exposes them. But the people who come in truth, he can and will heal. Unless there is some reason holding back the healing, he would let them know. Has this happened in the people that have tried to test him? Oh yes, he has been tested many times on many occasions. Even when he went underground, there were infiltrators every now and then, but he is of such purity and sensitivity that the tests are very obvious to him. Could you give me an example of one that you were a witness to? Dolores asks. There was a soldier, I remember, in Jerusalem, and he paid a beggar to lie about a healing. I saw the Nazarene pick out this fraud, and he even exposed the soldier. What would the soldier have gained from something like this? Dolores asked. The soldier wanted to turn the people against him, and the people who were just beginning to listen to him, for the Romans are very threatened by his, she couldn't find the right words, Dolores, abilities, but the populace was beginning to listen. Dolores, then the soldier paid the beggar to pretend he had been healed, or what? To say that he had been healed, but an infection had come back. He had a festering wound. That is what I remember. He stood up before the crowd and showed his festering wound, which he told them had been healed by this man they called Jesus. And then this is what happened to the wound. But the crowd was told the whole story by the Nazarene, and he even pointed out the soldier. The crowd turned on the soldier and started throwing stones, but this upset the Nazarene very much. And there was another incident where a blind man was brought to him, and Jesus was not able to cure him. He was able to point out to the man, the crowds, and the people who were trying to cause problems, the reasons why this man would not regain his sight. Dolores, what were the reasons? There were things that he had done in his life, but also he was given blindness as a teacher. He was given blindness so he would turn inward and heal the darkness and the fear within and let the light come through so he could live in truth. For sight does not give one clear vision. This man had done some horrendous things in his earlier years. That was his karma catching up to him, but he was still alive to turn. And the blindness was caused by an accident. So he was spared his life, but this man who was going to try to make the Nazarene look like a fraud was filled with such love and understanding that he accepted his blindness. There was also something within him that was healed to cause him to accept his life and to be of service. Dolores, how does the crowd react at these times when he can't heal somebody? Do they become angry if he can't always do these things? If a healing cannot take place, there is a reason given. And I would say it is so acceptable that it really cannot be questioned because it is filled with such truth. But since the Romans and the Jews of the temple live in such fear of him, he has chosen to be of service in these various villages where he is accepted and needed and wanted. Dolores, then he tries to stay away from Jerusalem. Is that what you mean? Yes, because it hinders his progress. Dolores, have you ever seen him do anything else besides the healings that was different or out of the ordinary? Dolores, I was thinking of other miracles mentioned in the Bible. She paused as though thinking. Or if you have not seen it personally, have you heard stories of the things he had done that the ordinary person couldn't do? I have seen the illuminations from his hands. I have seen him heal people's very souls, their hearts. I have seen him survive things that people might not normally survive. Dolores, do you have any example of something like that? Deep sigh. I know he was taken by the Roman soldiers beneath the courts and tortured. I know he was placed in a cart that was not big enough for a man to survive in, and that he was thrown over into a ravine, and he survived. I hesitated in talking about this because since those times he has been protected in various villages. I have seen him survive physical things, but the miracles have been in the healing, in the food, in the finding enough to care for people's needs, like when he produced food for 5,000 people. Why did the soldiers do that to him, Dolores asks. They were trying to find various ways to destroy him because he was gaining too much power. He was beginning to gain many followers who were questioning the Roman laws and the equality and fairness of life under them. They were gaining strength and talking of rebelling, for this is not how you treat your fellow man. So the soldiers were trying to destroy the Nazarene and make it appear that others had done it. Dolores, did they do this without any authority? They had authority. They had their king's authority, sadly, but they will succeed. They will find enough dark people and they will succeed. She sighs. She starts crying. Dolores, but at the time, did they arrest him? You said they tortured him. I'm curious about what had happened. Then, as though I brought her attention back to the other story, she had been thinking of the future event, meaning his crucifixion, because she saw that. She saw it coming. Jesus knew too, but he kept the course. Oh yes, they took him without causing a scene. It appeared to be a friendly ploy, but it was a matter of a kidnap. There are mazes and cellars under the courts, and they took him there and threatened him and tortured him. They thought this would be enough. When they found out he would not succumb, then they started infiltrating the streets and getting anyone they could find to do their deeds. There are many who can be paid off. Many poor Roman followers were very eager to do the bidding of the soldiers. Gang stalking. Christ was being gang stalked way back then by all these wackadoodles. And he knew it, and he dealt with it. Then you said after they tortured him, they put him in a small cart? Yes, a crate, a box. And then they rolled him over off a ravine, feeling surely this would kill him, and it did not. So now they continue to infiltrate the streets and pay people to bring down his reputation, to make him seem what he is not. For there are many of those who can be bought off and turned in on their own kind too. And they will, of course, blame it on the people of the temple. The Nazarene chose to walk his own path because he found those within the temple to be as cruel and manipulative as within the Roman courts. So, and then Dolores asks, I would think after he survived going off into the ravine that the Romans would have reacted differently. The Romans were filled with more fear because they know that these private villages are forming. His followers are growing. Every time he has a healing, every time something happens, or a person who has had a dark personality has changed, just like the blind man, it creates more believers. If he knows someone from the Romans is going to try to mistreat him, he will confront them with this. He is made aware of who has turned on him. He went, even though he was aware of the kidnap, because he thought he might be able to heal within the hierarchy of the government. So he had chose to allow his physical being to go through what it must for his own lessons on this earth. He did that for a reason then, because he knew it was going to happen. I would think that after seeing him survive, the Romans would realize he wasn't an ordinary human being. This was more apparent to them, so they sped up their intervention on the streets. They knew that unless they turned the masses against him, they would not survive, the Romans. They would not retain their power, so they lived in more fear after he survived. Dolores, that is why he doesn't want to return to Jerusalem anytime soon? Yes, but he will return there because there are people there that need him. He knows he must carry out his plans and his mission, so he will go back. Dolores, maybe this was just why he didn't want to take you back to Jerusalem. After I told him of my vision, and he told me of the truth and clarity in it, he also told me that there was no need to walk with him. My mission was to stay in the village where I was needed and could be of service. I could grow here, and then my next path would become clear to me. But I know why he does not want me to come. He does not want me to be there. There is no reason to go, for we both know what will happen. I thought maybe he was afraid to take you back into the city because they would be looking for him, Dolores asked. Yes, but there is no need for me to go. Dolores, amazingly in this session, Anna supplied missing parts of a story that she consciously didn't even know. When Jesus decided to return to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, his disciples feared for his safety. But the Bible never makes it clear why. Now it was obvious why they didn't want him to return. He had already been exposed to torture and near death several times. He was safe if he stayed in the Nazareth area because that was Philip's, Herod Antipas' brother. That was Philip's domain, and he was beyond the power of the Jerusalem authorities from Capernaum, and he could easily avoid Herod Antipas. The Romans did not normally send their troops that far away from their stronghold in Jerusalem. He could also find privacy in these smaller towns if he desired it for himself and his disciples. He could have been more open in his teachings in these communities, away from the larger cities. But in some of these areas, such as the meetings in the caves around the Sea of Galilee, he knew he had to be more careful because of the possible presence of spies. This must have been John's job to speak with the organizers of the meetings to know which areas would pose a danger, in which case hidden meeting places would have to be arranged. Jesus did not go blindly into these areas. He had information concerning the group's safety before John would allow him to enter. He was safe in the village of the lepers because this was a place to be shunned, and only selfless, devoted people like this, like his group, would have the courage and the caring to go there. In such places, he had no worries about being overheard by spies planted by Rome. He could relax and live a seemingly normal life. This was probably why he sought out these isolated towns. In Jerusalem, there were many diverse nationalities and religions, and many had difficulty understanding Jesus' teachings. Even among the Jews, there was a variety of spiritual and mental outlooks, even heathen. Among all of these were nationalists, often natives of Galilee, to whom God and people, God of Jerusalem, God and the temple, were inseparable objects. They burned with indignation over everything which was not in accord with this unity. Against this background, Jesus was perceived as not national enough for the nationalists, too old-fashioned for the Sadducees, too modern and liberal for the Pharisees, and too strict for the ordinary people of the street. He had a difficult time trying to be all things to all people. In Jesus' time, the only education was education in religion. They were taught that the law of Moses was the most important teaching, and that the only thing that they were expected to base their life and their thinking on. Jews were not taught to think for themselves or to question the rabbis or the priests. They were taught not to think for themselves, only just to listen to the rabbis and priests and listen to what everything's being said to them. In Jerusalem, Jesus was viewed with suspicion because he was asking people to go against the only teachings that they had ever been exposed to, the old programs. He was asking them to listen to a totally different way of thinking, and many were incapable of doing so. It was much easier to present this new and radical ideas to those in the outlying towns who were open to listening to ideas, that were contrary to their upbringing. It was not easy for the people to listen and accept concepts that were totally opposite to everything that they have been taught all their life. It's tough. It's definitely tough. Many considered him a dangerous radical, and his teachings the ramblings of a madman. Historians claim that Jesus' famous Sermon on the Mount could never have been preached in the Jerusalem area because that city was a hotbed of tradition. The sermon presented the opportunity to the listeners to look beyond tradition and the exact letter of the law. Exact letter of the law to such a new and enlarged application of old sayings and truths. Such a state of mind would not have generally been found in Judea at the time, but it was exactly what could be expected in the region of Capernaum. Jesus had turned the rabbis, priests, and traditional Jews against him because he thought the priests in the temple concentrated too much on rituals and the performance of ceremonies. They did not look at the problems and concerns of the people. Jesus saw that there was greater conflict than the ones between Rome's tyranny and the Jewish belief that they were the chosen people of God. The people of Palestine had real cause to be afraid of the Romans. During Jesus' lifetime, at the beginning of the reign of the Herod Antipas, some Jews tried a rebellion. It was put down by the superior strength of the Romans, and 2,000 Jews were crucified as punishment. The people lived with the oppression of a harsher ruler, but their hope for a Redeemer, a Messiah, a Savior, to lead them out of it, showed that they were desiring an overthrow of an existing government and return of their lost freedoms. The Zealots used the emotions to fuel their cause. They thought that Jesus would be the new king in the literal sense, and that he would side with them in a real war to free the country. His mild ways and talk of love angered them because they expected violence to be the answer. Judas Iscariot is now recognized as probably belonging to the Zealots. This was one of the reasons behind his betrayal of Christ. He thought he could force Jesus into a situation where he might have to fight and the rest of the people would join him. The Romans were very aware of the volatile situation in Jerusalem and the possible danger presented by anyone who might appear as a leader. When Jesus entered the city on Palm Sunday, exalted by the cheering throng, the Romans knew that they would have to get rid of him by any means. His popularity had grown to a threat that menaced them. The people were acknowledging him as the long-awaited Messiah, who would lead them from the bondage and slavery to the Romans. He was the man who would lift the yoke. The authorities saw that this man Jesus could be the one to stir the people into a rebellion. The gentle man could no longer be tolerated. He would have to be eliminated. My research revealed that the underground area of Jerusalem is riddled with old passageways and secret chambers. These areas and sections of two walls are the only parts that remain of the original biblical city. There were many chambers beneath the sites of the temple. Some of these were used by Roman soldiers to provide secret access from their fortress at the corner of the temple wall to other areas as means of defense. It is logical to assume that this was the area Naomi refers to, where Jesus was taken to be questioned and tortured in the hope he would be intimidated into giving up his radical teachings. The ravine into which Naomi also said he was thrown in was all mentioned in all the historical data referring to this ancient city. At the time of Jesus, the city was divided by a ravine called the Tyropoeon Valley, spanned by a bridge. On the east side of the enormously high temple wall lay the Kedron Ravine, or the Kedron Valley, which was also spanned by a bridge from the Mount of Olives. Josephus said that his valley was so deep you could not see the bottom, when looking down from the wall. According to the historical research, Jesus' brother James was murdered there when he was thrown from the wall down into the ravine. This occurred in the turbulent time following Jesus' death on the cross. These valleys no longer exist. If Jesus was able to survive the torture and death attempts of the Romans, then it should be obvious that he could have escaped being arrested and crucified. He died only because he chose to do so. As Jesus says in the Bible, John 10:17 and 18, I lay down my life that I might take it up again. No man taketh from me, but I lay it down for myself. Of myself, I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. If he had not decided it was his time to ascend, and it was not fitting into the pattern of his life, then he would not have allowed the Romans to kill him. It appears from this story that he had great control over his body, even to the extent that he could survive what would have killed others who were not so developed. He knew and understood his mission to the point that he could control the time and method of his death. I'll close it at that. Yeah. It's chapter 10, but I just wanted to read that because, it seems relevant to try to teach people that want to listen. And, hopefully people are listening. I don't know, I can't tell if they hacked my computer. And if I see sometimes messages aren't attached, so I don't know why that happens. I know how to attach a message, and whatever they're doing, they're blocking certain stuff. So, I don't know, just trying to bring these messages for everybody. Stay up, stay blessed. We all are, right? Peace.